A girl stayed overnight at her friend's house and disappeared without a trace in the morning. The bedroom window was wide open and all her belongings were left in the room. Police began searching for her, but none of them suspected the dark secrets they would soon uncover in the small town. Amanda Lankey was born on June 7, 1991 in Tennessee. She grew up in a large and friendly family with several brothers and sisters. Later, they moved with their parents to Spring Hill, Florida, where Amanda attended the local middle school. She was passionate about dancing, writing poetry, playing multiple musical instruments, and was a very positive child. During school vacations, Amanda always went to her grandparents' house in a small town called White Cloud. She loved spending time there as she had many friends in the town. White Cloud was a quiet and peaceful place with a population of only 1,400 people. Most of its residents knew each other, children played without supervision, and no one worried about their safety. In 2004, when she was only 13 years old, Amanda finished the 7th grade of middle school and went to White Cloud for the whole summer. She spent a lot of time with her friends, went for walks, and enjoyed her vacation. On June 20th, Amanda stayed overnight at her best friend's house. They talked, had fun, and went to bed late at night. In the morning, her friend woke up and found that Amanda was not in the room. The bedroom windows were wide open. She went to the kitchen, walked around the house, but Amanda was nowhere to be found. It was strange because all her belongings, including clothes and a backpack, were left in the bedroom. The friend told her parents that Amanda was missing, and they called her grandparents. They walked several streets and called the parents of Amanda's other friends, but no one had seen her. Then the relatives decided to go to the police. They understood that Amanda could not have gone anywhere without warning, especially in just her pajamas. First, investigators talked to Amanda's friend. According to her, she didn't hear anything that night, and Amanda never told her that she was planning to leave. At the time of the disappearance, the friend's parents, as well as her brother and sister, were in the house. None of them heard or saw anything. Police tried to find witnesses who lived near the house, but they also hit a dead end. On that night, no residents noticed anything strange. On the first day of the investigation, the investigators concluded that the girl, with a high probability, had left home on her own initiative and run away. They argued that they found no signs of struggle in the house and that 5 people did not hear anything. It was difficult to imagine a scenario in which Amanda could have been abducted without waking up her friend who was sleeping just a meter away. This version caused outrage among Amanda's relatives. They insisted that the girl had no problems at home and was happy to spend the entire summer in White Cloud. In addition, they pointed out that the girl left all her things, including clothes, in her friend's room. According to the police's version, she decided to run away in just her pajamas. When the news of Amanda's disappearance spread throughout the district, the police received several calls from people saying they had seen a similar girl in different places. This only reinforced the detectives' confidence that Amanda had run away from home, but they could not confirm any of these leads. The investigators decided to check the girl's computer, hoping to find some information that could help in the search. They found correspondence with a certain young man, and based on this, the police assumed that Amanda ran away to meet him. However, there were discrepancies. There was no mention of a possible meeting in these correspondence, and it was about ordinary and everyday topics. Nevertheless, the investigators considered this enough to once again convince themselves of their correctness. At that time, they did not disclose all the details of the investigation, but information about correspondence with a certain guy spread throughout the city, so many local residents also began to think that the girl simply ran away from home. Meanwhile, her relatives were posting flyers and giving interviews to various media outlets. They insisted that Amanda could not have run away on her own initiative, and the police were not putting in all the effort to find her because of this misconception. The investigators did not really use the full range of their capabilities. If they officially considered this case as a kidnapping, they could have involved the FBI and other agencies in the investigation. Instead, they were convinced that the girl simply left home and, for this reason, searched for her half-heartedly. They never found any serious leads on Amanda's possible location, and the investigation stretched on for several weeks. On the morning of July 5th, mushroom pickers went to a forest located approximately 10 kilometers from White Cloud, where they found a human body and reported it to the police. Investigators arrived at the scene and immediately recognized the body as Amanda Lankey. She was wearing the same pajamas she had disappeared in from her friend's house. Later, medical experts officially confirmed her identity and determined that Amanda had received multiple blows from a heavy object and died on the night of her disappearance. Detectives concluded that the victim had been killed elsewhere and then brought to the forest. They could not find any significant leads, so they decided to interview everyone who knew the girl. Over the next few days, police questioned approximately 400 people, which constituted almost 1/3 of the entire population of White Cloud. Investigators even used a polygraph, but it did not yield any results. They also decided to take another look at the young man with whom Amanda had corresponded online. The problem was that the word killer was used in his nickname. Police considered the possibility that the victim actually went to meet him and he killed her. However, this version still had many inconsistencies. There was nothing to suggest that the girl would have gone to meet someone in her pajamas in the middle of the night. Furthermore, there was no hints of a personal meeting in their correspondence. The investigator could not identify this person, and soon the version of his involvement was no longer considered. In an attempt to get some new leads, detectives decided to study all of Amanda's belongings, which led to a breakthrough. They found her personal diary, which contained very disturbing information. Shortly before her death, Amanda wrote that a certain man had been harassing her, and the next several pages were torn out. Investigators suspected that his name was written on them. This diary immediately became the main lead in the case. Police tried to identify the man's identity. They talked to all of Amanda's friends and asked if the girl had mentioned anything about this. Several of her friends admitted that she had indeed told them about it and even named the man, Cecil Wallace. He was the stepfather of Amanda's friend with whom she had stayed the night. For detectives, this information was a real surprise. They had been looking for the killer all over the town and beyond, and in the end, the possible culprit was in the same house as the victim. But the testimony of the friends was not enough to arrest him. Investigators had no substantial evidence against the man. No DNA samples were found on the victim's body, and the court documents did not indicate whether she had been subjected to violence. Detectives questioned Wallace, but he denied any involvement in the crimes. The police themselves wondered how the man could have done all this unnoticed in a small house where his wife and 3 children slept. Without serious evidence or confession, they could not detain Wallace. Therefore, the detectives continued to work on all possible leads. Soon after, an interesting fact emerged. It turned out that Wallace's sister, Candace, worked in the police department that was handling Amanda's case. Moreover, the woman actively helped her brother and his family during the interrogations. She literally told him what to say and how to behave. But that was not all. 5 years ago, she was fired from another police department for falsifying a report on her brother's accident. She wrote that he was driving on a road when a deer ran out in front of him. However, in reality, the man was drunk and had an accident. By that time, other detectives were already handling Amanda's case, and they questioned the objectivity of the investigation by the local police. However, they could not confirm that anyone other than Candace could be helping Wallace. The investigators questioned the man and his family several more times, but all of this did not yield any results. They continued to look for any leads, but in the end, this case stretched on for several years. During this time, the Wallace family complained several times to the police that their home had been vandalized. The fact that the townspeople unanimously believed that the man was a murderer and that he was being covered up by his sister only increased the negative sentiments. The fact that Wallace continued to live among them freely only intensified these feelings. 4 years after the murder, in 2008, detectives turned to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children for help. They sent their investigators to White Cloud, where they reviewed all the case materials, conducted new interrogations, and tried to find new leads. Ultimately, they came to the same conclusion as the local detectives. There was not enough evidence to make an arrest. 3 more years passed, and in 2011, the police finally got a new lead that changed everything. A 27-year-old girl from Texas who grew up in White Cloud went to a news website from her old town. There, she came across information about Amanda's murder and started looking into it. After reading that the victim had spent the night at the Wallace house, the woman decided to go to the police and tell them something disturbing. In 1998, when she still lived in that city and was 13 years old, she stayed overnight at the Wallace house because she was friends with his second foster daughter. In the middle of the night, a man entered their room and assaulted both of them. He then threatened them to keep quiet. The victims were too scared to go to the police, so they never told anyone about what had happened. But after the adult victim learned about Amanda's case, she decided to contact the police. Furthermore, she wrote a statement to the police, which helped investigators to get closer to the arrest of the suspect. They interviewed a large number of White Cloud residents who could potentially have been affected by Wallace's actions, and this tactic worked. They were able to find several women who admitted that the man had touched them inappropriately. All of this happened between 1998 and 2002. The victims were then between 13 and 16 years old. Gathering all this information together, in October 2011, police arrested 43-year-old Wallace. He was charged with molesting these victims, as well as the man who was officially named as a suspect in Amanda's case for the first time. Knowing all that other women had told them, detectives had no doubt about his involvement in the murder. At the preliminary hearing, he was granted bail of $150,000, and somehow he was able to pay this amount. Apparently, his sister and other relatives helped him gather the money. The trial was supposed to begin in a month. While waiting for this, Wallace returned to work. The local residents were unhappy that he had been released on bail. They repeatedly protested outside the company's office, demanding that this man be fired. On November 10th, on the day of the first court hearing, an unexpected turn occurred. Wallace did not show up at the appointed time, and the police immediately declared him wanted. A few hours later, they managed to find his car in the woods near the city. The man was there too. The only thing was that he had taken his own life. Detectives, who did not expect such a turn of events, were forced to continue the investigation. After the suspect's death, they could only rely on significant evidence that could link him to Amanda's death. They obtained a search warrant for his home, trying to find anything related to her murder. The police examined every corner, tore down some walls, and removed floorboards, but they could not find any serious evidence. Afterwards, they shifted their focus to the suspect's sister, Candace. Detectives were certain that she was covering up for her brother and wanted to find out if she knew that he had killed Amanda. After gathering the necessary evidence, Candace was arrested in August 2012. She was charged with intentionally misleading the investigation, but that was only the beginning. During the investigation, detectives found out that Candace had been covering up for her brother during the times when he was dealing in illegal substances. Furthermore, she taught him how to not leave any evidence at the crime scenes. She showed him how to properly wipe his fingerprints off surfaces so that experts couldn't lift them. Candace also advised him to always carry a cigarette with someone else's DNA on it, so that if necessary, he could plant it at the crime scene. Detectives also concluded that at least 9 people knew about Wallace's crimes, but remained silent. All of them were members of his family. The police were unable to prove their guilt. The investigation into Candace's involvement continued for 2 years until 2014, when she made a deal with the police. She admitted to lying to the investigators, and in exchange, 2 other charges were dropped. The issue was that Wallace's sister could not provide consulting services on a case that she was working on as a police officer. Given that she had been helping her brother through interrogations, she broke this rule and was ultimately punished for it. However, Candace continued to insist that her brother was innocent. The court sentenced her to 30 weekends in jail. This is a dubious practice where the convict is only required to be in the jail building for 2 days a week and can freely roam during the rest of the time. Such sentences serve as a kind of half measure, and if a person has committed a minor offense, they can be given several weekends in jail. This way, they receive a punishment, but it does not strongly affect their life. The convicted person can continue to go to work and spend time with their family. Of course, Amanda's relatives were extremely dissatisfied with this decision. They, like the detectives, were sure that Candace had helped her brother avoid punishment, but proving it 100% was not possible. Therefore, she got off with such a minor punishment. The Amanda's family was forced to go through yet another trial. In 2004, medical experts only handed over part of her remains to them so they could hold a funeral. The rest was to be kept by detectives during the investigation, but after Wallace's death, a decision was made to hand over these remains to the relatives. In 2013, the girl's family had to exhume her remains to bury Amanda again. Her mother still hopes that investigators will find any evidence that will prove Wallace's guilt. She also tries to achieve changes in the legislation to change the police approach to searching for missing children. The woman insists that investigators should not conduct an investigation based on their subjective assessments and consider the disappearance as a voluntary escape from home. Thus, there is almost no doubt that Wallace killed Amanda. But what was his motive? Considering that there is no information in the court documents about whether the victim was subjected to violence, 2 assumptions can be made. He probably did assault her but did not leave his biological material, so the investigation decided not to reveal this fact since it was unnecessary. Detectives could also keep this information secret for the sake of the investigation, hoping that the criminal would reveal facts that had never been told. His past crimes also speak in favor of Wallace being the killer. He assaulted at least 3 victims using the same scheme. All of them stayed at his house overnight. The question remains, why did he kill Amanda? Perhaps he planned to intimidate her like the others, but the girl threatened to tell the truth to everyone. Or she tried to run away from him and then he panicked. Something else in this case is very alarming. Detectives suggested that all of Wallace's relatives who were in the house on the night of the murder knew about this crime and even helped the man hide it. In addition to Amanda, his wife, son, and daughter were there. This could explain how he managed to attack the victim without waking any of his relatives. In any case, even without a final verdict from the court, Wallace will no longer be able to harm anyone. The fact that he settled the score with his life before the trial once again speaks in favor of his guilt, even though he took the details of this crime to the grave. Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Thanks for watching.